The morning sun hung low over New Orleans, casting a golden sheen across the muddy waters of the Mississippi River. Jasper, Jazz Thibodeaux eased his black Jeep Grand Cherokee to a stop near the riverbank, just outside River Brew, a quaint coffee shop nestled in the heart of the French Quarter. At 38, Jasper carried the quiet pride of a man who'd clawed his way up from nothing. His tailored linen shirt clung lightly to his broad shoulders, a faint Creole lilt in his voice as he hummed an old Zydeco tune his father used to sing. Today was a good day, or it should have been. He'd just inked a deal to expand his Bayou Bites restaurant chain into a partnership with a major hotel group, a milestone that would cement his name among the city's culinary elite. The faded yellow lines marking the parking spot were barely visible, worn away by years of riverfront traffic and neglect. But Jasper shrugged it off. Everyone parked here. It was fine. He stepped out, the humid air thick with the scent of magnolias and the distant tang of the river. Adjusting his sunglasses, he glanced at the Jeep, its polished chrome glinting in the sunlight, a symbol of everything he'd built. Inside River Brew, the rich aroma of chicory coffee greeted him like an old friend. The barista, a wiry young woman named Ellie with a quick smile, spotted him and called out over the hiss of the espresso machine. "Morning, Mr. Thibodeaux. The usual?" Jasper grinned, leaning against the counter. "You know it, Ellie. And how many times I gotta tell you, just jazz." She laughed, already pulling a double shot for him, the routine as familiar as the jazz riffs drifting from a street busker outside. But across the street, trouble was brewing. Officer Ethan Landry, a wiry 26-year-old with a chip on his shoulder and 3 years on the force, sat in his patrol car, eyes locked on Jasper's Jeep. His uniform was crisp, but his sneer betrayed a hunger for something more than parking tickets. "Look at that," he muttered to himself, fingers tapping the steering wheel. "Fancy ride, fancy clothes. Thinks he owns the damn quarter." He grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Landry, issuing a citation for illegal parking on Decatur Street. Copy." The static crackled back confirmation as he stepped out, circling the Jeep like a vulture eyeing prey. He scribbled the ticket with deliberate slowness, searching for any scratch or excuse to escalate. Inside, Jasper sipped his espresso, chatting with Ellie about the new menu he'd been tweaking, shrimp étouffée with a twist. When he glanced out the window, his stomach tightened. "Looks like I'm getting a ticket," he said, frowning. Ellie peeked over his shoulder. "For what?" "Everyone parks there." Jasper set his cup down, the warmth fading from his voice. "Apparently not today. Better go handle this." He pushed through the door just as Landry slid the ticket under the windshield wiper, the officer's smirk barely concealed. "Excuse me, officer," Jasper called, keeping his tone even, polite. "Is there a problem with my parking?" Landry turned, his eyes narrowing as he sized Jasper up. "Good morning, sir," he said, the words dripping with mockery. "You're in a no parking zone. Signage is clear as day down the block." Jasper glanced at the faded lines, then toward the corner where a rusted sign hung half-hidden behind a drooping oak branch. "I'm sorry, but those lines are barely there, and that sign's not exactly visible. I thought this was a legit spot." Landry's smirk widened into something colder. "Ignorance ain't an excuse. Rules are rules." His hand rested lightly on his holster, a subtle threat Jasper didn't miss. The air thickened, the hum of the quarter fading as tension coiled between them. This wasn't about a ticket anymore. Jasper took a slow breath, keeping his hands visible, his voice steady despite the pulse quickening in his chest. "Officer, I get you're doing your job, but that sign's blocked by the tree, and these lines are damn near invisible. Can't we talk this out?" Landry's posture stiffened, his smirk fading into a hard line. "The ticket's issued, sir. You got a problem? Take it up in court." The dismissal stung, but Jasper pressed on, reasonable yet firm. "Look, I've lived here my whole life. Nobody's ever been ticketed here. I'm just asking for some clarity." Landry stepped closer, invading Jasper's space, his tone sharpening. "Clarity? How's this? I say it's illegal. It's illegal. What's your name?" Before Jasper could answer, a second patrol car rolled up, tires crunching gravel as it stopped behind the Jeep. Officer Roy Dupont emerged, a grizzled veteran at 52, his cold blue eyes scanning the scene like a predator sizing up a kill. His reputation preceded him. Whispers in the quarter called him the precinct's enforcer, a man who thrived on bending rules to break people. "Everything all right here, Landry?" Dupont called, his voice gravelly, measured but laced with menace. Landry straightened, bolstered by his mentor's presence. "Just a parking citation, sir. This gentleman thinks the rules don't apply to him." Jasper's jaw tightened. "I never said that. I'm pointing out the signage ain't clear." Dupont sauntered over, his gaze raking over Jasper's pressed shirt, the Jeep, the quiet confidence in his stance. His lip curled faintly. "ID," he demanded, no trace of a request in his tone. Jasper hesitated, the air growing heavier. "Am I being detained? This is a parking ticket. Why do you need my ID?" Dupont's eyes narrowed, a flicker of contempt flashing through them. "When I ask for ID, you hand it over. That's the law." Jasper knew his rights, but he also knew the stories. Men like him, stopped for nothing, ending up in cuffs or worse. Slowly, deliberately, he reached for his wallet, extracting his driver's license and passing it to Dupont. The older cop studied it longer than necessary, then handed it back with a sneer. "Jasper Thibodeaux, Bayou Bites, huh? Big shot restaurateur." He stepped closer, his breath sour with stale coffee. "Let's run the plates. Make sure this ride's really yours." Jasper's patience frayed. "It's mine. Registered, insured. Check if you want. This is ridiculous." Landry smirked, heading to his cruiser, while Dupont loomed, his presence suffocating. A small crowd gathered outside River Brew, Ellie among them, her phone raised, recording. Dupont noticed, his jaw twitching, but he didn't flinch. The radio crackled as Landry returned, his expression tightening with glee. "Plates check out, but there's a glitch. Registration's pending. Technically, you shouldn't be driving this." Jasper's voice rose, incredulous. "That's impossible. I renewed it last month. Got the receipt on my phone." He reached for his pocket, but Dupont's hand shot out, clamping his wrist. "Keep your hands where I can see 'em," he growled, twisting hard enough to send a jolt of pain up Jasper's arm. The crowd murmured, phones multiplying. "Turn around," Dupont barked, yanking Jasper toward the Jeep. "You're under arrest, unregistered vehicle and resisting." Jasper's face pressed against the warm hood, cuffs biting into his wrists as Dupont hissed in his ear. "This is New Orleans, boy. Know your place." The words echoed, a dark promise of what awaited in the neon-lit precinct ahead. The patrol car lurched through the narrow streets of the French Quarter, Officer Roy Dupont behind the wheel, driving with a deliberate roughness that sent Jasper Thibodeaux jostling against the hard plastic seat. Each pothole was a jolt, each sharp turn a reminder of the cuffs cutting into his wrists. The city's vibrancy, brass bands, tourists, the clink of beads, faded into a dull hum behind the tinted windows, replaced by the cold reality of his situation. Dupont's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror, catching Jasper's gaze with a smirk that promised more than just a night in lockup. "Comfortable back there. Big shot," he taunted, hitting another bump hard enough to slam Jasper's head against the partition. Jasper didn't answer, his jaw clenched, refusing to give the man the satisfaction. They pulled into the back lot of Precinct 7, a squat brick building wedged between a jazz club and a pawn shop on Bourbon Street. Neon lights from the surrounding bars bled through the chain-link fence, casting eerie green and purple streaks across the cracked pavement. Dupont yanked Jasper out, his grip bruising as he marched him through the rear entrance. Inside, the precinct buzzed with a chaotic rhythm. Phones ringing, officers shouting over the din, the air thick with cigarette smoke and stale sweat. Heads turned as Jasper was paraded past, some faces blank, others smirking with thinly veiled disdain. At the booking desk, a heavy-set officer with graying hair and a bored expression barely glanced up from his screen. "What's this one?" he grunted. "Unregistered vehicle, resisting arrest," Dupont replied, shoving Jasper forward. "Harassment, more like it," Jasper shot back, his voice steady despite the ache in his shoulders. "Save it," the booking officer snapped, waving him off like a fly. Processed like livestock, Jasper endured the indignity, fingerprints smudged onto a card, his photos snapped under harsh fluorescent light, his wallet, watch, and wedding ring stripped away and bagged with mechanical precision. Through it all, he kept his head high, his eyes burning with a quiet fury. "Cell 3, the booking officer finally muttered, nodding toward a corridor lined with dented steel doors. DuPont steered him down the hall, passing empty cells until they reached one with a single occupant, a wiry black man in his early 30s, slumped on a bench in jeans and a faded Saints t-shirt. "Home sweet home," DuPont sneered, unlocking the cuffs with a twist that sent a fresh spike of pain through Jasper's wrists. The door clanged shut, the sound reverberating off the concrete walls like a gunshot. Jasper rubbed his raw skin, turning to his cellmate, who looked up with weary curiosity. "What you in for?" the man asked, eyeing Jasper's rumpled linen shirt. "Parking ticket," Jasper replied, his voice dry as dust. The man let out a bitter chuckle. "Must have been some ticket. I'm Reggie Jones. Own a bakery on Magazine Street. You?" Jasper extended a hand, the gesture grounding him in the absurdity. "Jasper Thibodeaux. Bayou Bites." Reggie shook it, his grip firm. "Heard of you. Good gumbo. So what's the real story?" Jasper sank onto the bench opposite, loosening his collar. "Parked by River Brew. Lines were faded, sign was hidden. Next thing I know, I'm cuffed for resisting." "You?" Reggie leaned back, his eyes darkening. "Same song, different verse. Third time they pulled me in. Always Sullivan and his crew. They've got a system here, man. Target folks like us. Black, doing all right. Till we break or pay." Jasper's eyes narrowed, the neon glow seeping through the cell's high window, painting jagged shadows across Reggie's face. "A system?" he repeated, voice low, the pieces starting to click. Reggie nodded, his tone heavy with resignation. "They call it community improvement. Pick out folks with businesses, bakeries, restaurants, barbershops, people who've got something worth taking. Harass us with tickets, arrests, planted evidence till we either sell cheap or shut down. Then the developers swoop in, turn our blocks into condos and tourist traps. Been at me for 2 years now. Lost 20 grand in lawyer fees the first time, a big contract the second. This time, who knows?" Jasper leaned forward, elbows on his knees, the weight of Reggie's words sinking in. "And it's always the same crew?" "Sullivan, DuPont, couple others," Reggie confirmed. "Lieutenant Bisset runs the show, but word is he's just the muscle for someone higher up." Jasper's mind raced, the faded parking lines and DuPont's sneer taking on new meaning. This wasn't random. It was a machine, oiled with greed and power, grinding down anyone who didn't fit its blueprint. Before he could press further, boots echoed down the corridor. Lieutenant Claude Bisset appeared outside the bars, a tall figure with salt and pepper hair and eyes like chipped ice. Flanked by DuPont and a nervous young officer Jasper didn't recognize, Bisset's presence sucked the air from the room. "Thibodeaux," he called, his voice sharp with authority. "You've stirred up quite a mess today." "I'd like my phone call," Jasper said, standing, his tone calm but unyielding. "And I'd like to know what I'm charged with." Bisset's mouth twitched, a ghost of amusement flickering before it hardened. "All in good time. Law says you get your call, sure, but paperwork's a slow beast." He turned to the young officer. "Rivers, get his intake forms." The kid, Rivers, nodded stiffly and scurried off, leaving DuPont lingering, his smirk back in full force. "Cozy in there, Thibodeaux," DuPont taunted. "Heard your fancy restaurants ain't up to code. Might need an inspection." Jasper didn't bite, locking eyes instead. "I'd like that call now. Been hours." DuPont's grin widened, predatory. "Like the lieutenant said, when we're ready. Maybe after supper." He checked his watch with exaggerated flair and sauntered off, leaving Jasper simmering. Rivers returned minutes later, clipboard in hand, his demeanor softer than the others. "Need some info, Mr. Thibodeaux," he muttered, avoiding eye contact as he ran through the questions. Address, employment, emergency contact. When he finished, he hesitated, glancing down the empty hall. "I'll push your call through," he whispered, then bolted before Jasper could respond. Reggie whistled low. "That one's green. Still got a soul. You're lucky." "Lucky's one word for it," Jasper said, pacing the cell's tight confines. When Rivers returned, he led Jasper to an interview room, a battered desk phone waiting under a flickering bulb. The door stayed cracked, DuPont's shadow lurking outside. Jasper dialed a number etched in memory, heart pounding as it rang twice. "Chief Jackson," a deep voice answered, familiar as home. "Lamar, it's Jazz," Jasper said, keeping it neutral. "I'm at Precinct 7. Parking ticket turned into a damn arrest. Sullivan and DuPont's work." Silence stretched, then Lamar's voice dropped, tight with fury. "Stay quiet. I'm coming." The line clicked dead, and DuPont stepped in, eyes narrowing. "Who'd you call, big shot?" Jasper met his gaze, unflinching. "Someone who'll sort this out." The air crackled, a storm brewing beyond the neon haze. The fluorescent hum of Precinct 7 buzzed like a swarm of angry wasps as Jasper Thibodeaux sat back in the holding cell, the taste of stale air thick on his tongue. Reggie Jones watched him from the opposite bench, his earlier bitterness giving way to a flicker of hope. "You really know the chief?" Reggie asked, voice low, as if afraid the walls might snitch. Jasper nodded, his mind drifting to humid summer nights in the Ninth Ward. Him and Lamar Jackson racing bikes through flooded streets, dodging debris after Katrina. "Since we were kids," he said simply. "He's family." The words anchored him, a lifeline in the concrete cage, but the weight gnawed at his nerves. Every creak of the precinct's old bones felt like a countdown. Outside, the air shifted, literally and figuratively, as Chief Lamar Jackson's unmarked black SUV screeched into the lot, tires spitting gravel. At 40, Lamar cut an imposing figure, his dark suit crisp despite the late hour, his silver badge glinting under the neon wash of Bourbon Street. He stormed through the front doors, his broad shoulders squared like a linebacker ready to charge, his voice booming through the precinct's chaos. "Where's Thibodeaux?" he demanded, eyes sweeping the room with a predator's focus. Officers froze mid-motion. Papers stilled, conversations died, caught in the sudden gravity of his presence. Lieutenant Claude Bisset emerged from his office, his salt and pepper hair catching the light, his expression a mask of forced calm. "Chief Jackson," Bisset greeted, stepping forward. "Didn't expect you here over a routine arrest." Lamar's gaze locked onto Bisset, sharp as a Bayou gator's. "Routine? My friend's in cuffs over a parking ticket. Explain that." Bisset's mouth twitched, a crack in his armor. Mr. Thibodeaux was arrested for driving an unregistered vehicle and resisting arrest. Situation escalated. Protocol was followed. Lamar stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous calm. "Escalated how?" He questioned a ticket, and now he's locked up? "Where's your body cam footage, Lieutenant?" Bisset hesitated, a bead of sweat glistening at his temple. "Technical issues, sir. Officer DuPont and Landry's cameras malfunctioned during the encounter." Lamar's laugh was a low, bitter rumble. "Both of them? That's a hell of a coincidence." The precinct went dead silent, every officer sensing the fault lines cracking beneath their feet. This wasn't just about Jasper anymore. It was a showdown, a test of wills between a chief fighting for justice and a system rotten at its core. "I want to see him," Lamar snapped, his tone leaving no room for debate. "Now!" Bisset's jaw tightened, but he nodded stiffly. "Bring Thibodeaux from holding," he barked at a nearby officer, who scrambled to obey. As they waited, Lamar scanned the room, his gaze lingering on faces, some averted, some defiant. Officer Roy DuPont leaned against a wall, arms crossed, his smirk unshaken, while the young Officer Rivers hovered near the desk, clipboard clutched like a shield. The tension coiled tighter, a storm brewing in the neon haze ready to break. The holding cell door groaned open, and Jasper stepped out, escorted by a uniformed officer whose eyes darted nervously between Lamar and the gathering storm. His linen shirt was wrinkled now, his wrists raw from the cuffs, but his posture remained unbroken, shoulders back, gaze steady. When he spotted Lamar, a flicker of relief softened the hard lines of his face, though the weight of the last few hours lingered in his clenched fists. "You good, Jazz?" Lamar asked, stepping forward, his voice softer but still edged with fury. Jasper managed a grim nod. "Been better." "You?" Lamar's eyes darkened. "About to be a lot worse for some folks here." He turned to Bisset, authority radiating from every word. Release him, now. Bissett's composure faltered, his fingers flexing at his sides. Chief, with respect, he's still being processed. Lamar cut him off, voice like a whip. I know protocol, Lieutenant. I also know harassment when I see it. Release him, or Internal Affairs gets a call tonight. The room held its breath, Bisset and Dupont exchanging a quick, calculating glance. Two predators weighing their odds. Before Bisset could respond, the precinct doors swung open again, and the air shifted as if a cold front had rolled off the Mississippi. Deputy Commissioner Vincent Moreau strode in, his tailored charcoal suit pristine, his silver hair catching the fluorescent glare like a halo gone wrong. At 55, Moreau carried the polished charm of a Creole aristocrat, his smooth baritone a weapon honed by years of power plays. Chief Jackson, he greeted, his smile tight and venomous. Making house calls now? How dedicated. Lamar turned unflinching, his badge gleaming defiantly. Commissioner, didn't know a parking ticket needed your personal touch. Moreau's chuckle was hollow, his eyes glinting with menace. When the chief intervenes in a lawful arrest, it's my concern. We wouldn't want personal ties clouding judgment, would we? The standoff crackled, a chess match unfolding in real time. Lawful? Lamar shot back, stepping closer. This reeks of misconduct, and you know it. Let's see how lawful it looks under a microscope. Moreau's smile didn't waver, but his voice dropped, a velvet threat. Careful, Malcolm. You're treading thin ice. Procedure's all we've got. Undermine it, and you undermine yourself. Lamar held his ground, fire meeting ice. What I'm undermining is a setup. Jazz leaves with me. End of story. Moreau's gaze flicked to Jasper, cold and appraising, then back to Lamar. Very well, he conceded, his tone deceptively mild. Lieutenant, process Mr. Thibodeaux out. Bisset hesitated, caught in the crossfire, then nodded curtly. As Jasper gathered his belongings from the property room, Officer Rivers slipped him a folded note, watch your back, before vanishing into the bullpen. Outside, Lamar led Jasper to his SUV, the neon glow of Bourbon Street fading behind them. This ain't over, Lamar warned, his voice low. Moreau's rattled. Means he's dangerous. Jasper clutched the note, the night air heavy with unspoken threats, a prelude to the traces they'd soon uncover. The night pressed heavy over New Orleans as Chief Lamar Jackson's SUV cut through the city, the Mississippi's dark waters glinting under the moon to their left. Jasper Thibodeaux sat in the passenger seat, the folded note from Officer Rivers, watch your back, burning a hole in his pocket. The neon haze of Bourbon Street faded in the rear view, replaced by the quieter hum of St. Charles Avenue, where gas lamps flickered like ghosts along the oak-lined street. Lamar's hands gripped the wheel tight, his jaw set, the silence between them thick with unspoken questions. Moreau's got claws deep in this city, Lamar finally said, voice low, eyes fixed on the road. That wasn't just about a ticket, Jazz. They're testing us. Jasper nodded, his mind replaying Dupont's sneer, Bisset's cold stare, Moreau's velvet threats. Reggie in the cell, he said they've got a system, targeting folks like us, black, successful, pushing us out for developers. You hearing this too? Lamar's knuckles whitened. Whispers, yeah. Complaints that vanish, witnesses who recant. Been trying to pin it down since I took the badge, but it's like chasing smoke. He glanced at Jasper, his gaze fierce. They picked the wrong damn fight this time. The SUV pulled into the lot of Bayou Bites' flagship location, a two-story brick building with wide windows and a wraparound porch, its sign glowing warm against the night. Inside, the restaurant was dark, the scent of smoked sausage and thyme lingering from the day's service. Jasper flipped on a single light, revealing the polished wood tables and framed photos of his family, generations of Thibodeaux who'd cooked their way through hardship. Lamar locked the door behind them, his movements deliberate, like a soldier securing a perimeter. We need a plan, he said, pulling a chair to a corner table. Moreau's rattled, but he's not dumb. He'll hit back. Jasper sank into the opposite seat, pulling out his phone. Something's off already. Check this. I got a security alert earlier. Someone tried accessing our system 3 days ago. He opened the app, scrolling through logs as Lamar leaned in. The screen showed an unauthorized login attempt, time-stamped just before the parking ticket fiasco, digging into financials, client lists, even property deeds for Bayou Bites' locations. They were scouting me, Jasper said, voice hardening, before they even wrote that ticket. Lamar's eyes narrowed. That's no coincidence. Moreau's playing a long game. Your expansion deal with that hotel group's got prime real estate tied up in Treme. They want it. Jasper's gut twisted, the pieces snapping into place. His success wasn't just a target, it was a threat to their empire. A sudden crash shattered the quiet, glass exploding inward as a brick sailed through the front window, skidding across the floor. Jasper and Lamar ducked instinctively, the brick stopping at their feet, a scrawled note taped to it. Know your place. The words echoed DuPont's hiss from earlier, a chilling thread tying the day's humiliations together. Lamar grabbed his radio, voice steady despite the adrenaline. Dispatch, this is Jackson. Vandalism at Bayou Bites on St. Charles. Send a unit, quietly. Jasper stood, staring at the jagged hole, the night air seeping in like a warning. This wasn't just a message, it was a declaration of war. Jasper's pulse hammered as he stepped toward the shattered window, glass crunching under his boots. The night outside was still, the streetcar's distant rumble, the only sound cutting through the humid silence. Lamar crouched by the brick, peeling the note free with gloved hands, his cop instincts kicking in. They're not even pretending to hide it, he muttered, holding the scrawled "Know your place" up to the dim light. Same vibe DuPont threw at you, arrogant as hell. Jasper's fist clenched, the violation of his sanctuary, his family's legacy, igniting a slow burn in his chest. This ain't just about me anymore, Lamar. Reggie said they've been at it for years. How many others they've crushed? Lamar stood, pocketing the note as evidence, his expression grim. Too many. Treme, Mid-City, the lower ninth. Neighborhoods flip for condos and boutique hotels while folks like Reggie lose everything. I've got files, cases that got buried, but nothing solid enough to nail Moreau. He paced, the floor creaking under his weight. That system breach you found? That's our thread. If we can trace it. Jasper cut in, already back at his phone, digging deeper into the security logs. Look here, IP address from the hack. It's local, routed through a server on Canal Street. Could be a precinct hub. Lamar's eyes flashed. Or one of Moreau's fronts. He's got shell companies all over. Real estate, construction, you name it. The revelation hung heavy, a map of corruption unfurling in their minds. Jasper's restaurants weren't just a business. They were a foothold in Treme, a historically black district Moreau's allies coveted for their gentrification schemes. The hotel deal had made him a bigger prize, a target worth breaking. They're not stopping at tickets and cuffs, Jasper said, voice low with realization. This brick's a warning. Next time it's worse. Lamar nodded, his radio crackling as dispatch confirmed a unit en route. We need proof, something they can't bury. I'll pull strings, get techs on that IP. You lock this place down tight. Cameras, alarms, the works. As Lamar stepped outside to meet the responding officers, Jasper lingered, his gaze falling on a photo above the bar. Him and his dad, grinning over a steaming pot of gumbo the day they opened Bayou Bites. The memory stung now, tainted by the night's violence. He pulled out his phone again, texting Vanessa. Trouble at the restaurant. Stay sharp. Her reply came fast. We're safe. You be careful, Jazz. But it did little to ease the knot in his gut. He moved to the office upstairs, booting up the main computer to double-check the breach. The screen flickered, then froze, a new alert popping up. File accessed. Thibodeaux property records. Someone was still digging, right now, in real time. Headlights swept the lot as the patrol car arrived. But Jasper barely noticed, his focus glued to the screen. The hacker's trace blinked, a live connection, and he snapped a photo of the IP data before it vanished, deleted remotely. His breath caught. This was no amateur. Lamar burst back in, urgency in his stride. Units securing the perimeter. What's wrong? Jasper held up the phone, voice tight. They're watching us, Lamar. Right damn now. The night deepened, traces of their enemy's reach spreading like roots under the city, a prelude to the whispers that would soon surface from within. The air inside Bayou Bites hung thick with tension as Jasper Thibodeaux stared at the photo of the hacker's IP on his phone, the neon glow from St. Charles Avenue seeping through the broken window like a taunt. Chief Lamar Jackson stood beside him, his radio silent now that the patrol unit had secured the lot, but his eyes burned with a restless energy. "They're in our systems, watching every move," Jasper said, voice low, the weight of violation sinking deeper. "This ain't just a brick through the glass. It's personal." Lamar nodded, his broad frame casting a shadow over the desk. "Moreau's got eyes everywhere. Precinct, city hall, maybe even my damn department. We need leverage, Jazz, something they can't hack or burn." The hum of the city outside was a distant pulse as Jasper pocketed his phone, the image of his dad's proud grin from the photo above the bar flashing in his mind. He couldn't let this, his family's legacy, crumble under Moreau's boot. "Reggie said it's a pattern," he told Lamar, pacing the office's creaky floorboards. "They've been hitting folks like me for years. If we can find proof, hard proof, we can blow this wide open." Lamar rubbed his temples, the weight of his badge heavier than ever. "I've got allies in the force, good cops who've seen Sullivan's crew pull this crap. But they're scared, man. Moreau's got the mayor's ear, developers' cash. We need a crack in their wall." A sharp rap on the restaurant's back door cut through their strategizing, both men tensing. Lamar drew his sidearm, motioning Jasper behind him as he approached, peering through the peephole. "It's one of mine," he muttered, holstering the gun and unlocking the door. Officer Tyrone Bell stepped inside, his young face etched with unease under the precinct cap. At 25, Ty had the lean build of a runner and eyes that flickered with a mix of fear and resolve. "Chief," he said, voice tight, glancing at Jasper. "Mr. Thibodeaux, I shouldn't be here, but I had to." Lamar shut the door fast, locking it. "Talk, Ty. What's got you sneaking out?" Ty pulled a USB drive from his pocket, holding it like it might burn him. "I've been recording body cam footage. Off book. Sullivan, Dupont, Bisset. They're dirty, sir. Orders straight from Moreau to target businesses, plant evidence, squeeze them dry. Your arrest today, Mr. Thibodeaux. That was scripted, part of their playbook." Jasper's gut twisted. DuPont's hissed, "Know your place," echoing in his ears. "Why risk this, Ty?" he asked, voice steady but searching. Ty swallowed hard, his gaze dropping. "My pops had a corner store in Gentilly. Sullivan's crew framed him, drugs they planted, lost everything, drank himself dead a year later. I joined up to stop this, not join it." Lamar took the USB, his expression hardening. "You're putting your neck out, son. This better be gold." Ty nodded, a faint tremble in his hands. "It's more than gold, Chief. It's dynamite. Dates, names, audio of Moreau calling the shots." Jasper met Lamar's eyes, a silent pact forming. This was their crack, their weapon. But it came with a cost, one Ty was already paying in the shadows. Lamar plugged the USB into Jasper's office computer, the screen flickering to life as Ty hovered near the door, his nervous energy crackling in the dim light. The first file loaded, a grainy body cam clip, time-stamped weeks ago. Officer Roy DuPont's voice cut through static, low and smug. "Moreau says hit the bakery on magazine hard. Jones is stubborn, needs a push." Another clip rolled, Lieutenant Bisset barking orders in a precinct hallway. "Thibodeaux's next. Parked wrong, make it stick. Boss wants him rattled before that hotel deal closes." Jasper's blood ran cold, his own name a target in their crosshairs, the parking ticket a calculated strike. Then the kicker, a muffled audio of Vincent Moreau himself, his smooth drawl unmistakable. "Treme's ours if we clear the holdouts. Break 'em or buy 'em. I don't care how." Jasper sank into the chair, the weight of it all crashing down. "They've been planning this. Me, Reggie, who knows how many others. It's a damn machine." Lamar paused the playback, his face a storm of fury and resolve. "This is it, Jazz. Straight from the snake's mouth. Enough to drag Moreau into the light, maybe even bust his whole operation." He turned to Ty, voice softening but firm. "You've done good, kid, damn good. But you're a ghost now. They find out you leaked this, you're done. Ty nodded, his jaw tight. I know, Chief. Just make it count. For Pops. The room fell quiet, the gravity of their next move settling like damp New Orleans mist. Jasper broke the silence, his mind racing ahead. We go public. Sonia Ortiz at the Crescent Times could run this, blow the lid off. But we need more, something they can't spin or bury. Lamar leaned against the desk, crossing his arms. Agreed. This is dynamite, but it's Ty's word against theirs in court. Unauthorized recordings won't hold up alone. We need paper trails, witnesses, stuff they can't erase. He glanced at the broken window, the brick still lying on the floor. And we need it fast. That hit tonight? They're closing in. Jasper pulled out his phone, texting Vanessa again. Lock the house down. Trouble's heating up. Her reply buzzed back. Doors bolted, kids asleep. Stay safe, Jazz. But the unease gnawed deeper. Moreau's got hackers' muscle. What's stopping him from hitting harder? He asked, voice tight. Lamar's eyes darkened. Nothing. That's why we move smart. Get this to my tech guys. Trace that IP from your breach. Cross-reference with Ty's footage. If we tie Moreau to the developers, we've got a case. He handed Ty a burner phone. Lay low. Use this to reach me. No precinct, no home till we're ready. Ty slipped out the back, vanishing into the night as Lamar and Jasper locked eyes. A plan taking shape. We're not just fighting for me, Jasper said, voice low with conviction. It's for Reggie, Ty's dad, all of them. Lamar clapped his shoulder, a rare grin breaking through. Damn right. Let's burn this bastard down. Outside, the city slept under its neon veil, oblivious to the storm brewing, a storm that would soon crash into Jasper's home with unrelenting force. The moon hung fat and silver over New Orleans, its light filtering through the live oaks that lined Jasper Thibodeaux Street in the Garden District. Inside his two-story Creole cottage, the house was still, the kids' soft snores drifting from upstairs, the faint hum of a ceiling fan cutting through the humid night. Vanessa Thibodeaux sat in the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a mug of chamomile tea, her eyes flicking to the clock. 2:17 a.m. Jasper's last text, troubles heating up, echoed in her mind, a quiet dread curling in her gut. She'd bolted every door, checked every window, but the silence felt wrong, too heavy, like the calm before a hurricane. At Bayou Bites, Jasper and Chief Lamar Jackson were still hunched over the computer, Ty's USB footage looping on the screen, Moreau's voice a venomous thread tying their fight together. We hit him with this tomorrow, Lamar said, voice rough with exhaustion. Sonia Ortiz can run it front page. Give us breathing room to dig deeper. Jasper nodded, but his phone buzzed, Vanessa's name lighting up the screen. He answered fast, heart lurching. Nessa, you okay? Her voice came through shaky, barely above a whisper. Jazz, someone's here. I heard glass break downstairs. I'm in the bathroom with the kids, locked in. Time stopped. Jasper's breath caught, the restaurant's walls closing in as Lamar snapped to attention, reading his face. They're at my house, Jasper choked out, already grabbing his keys. Vanessa, stay put. Call 911 now. I'm coming. Lamar was on his radio in seconds, barking orders. Dispatch, this is Jackson. Home invasion at 1427 Prytania Street. Tactical unit ASAP. Suspects armed. Family inside. He grabbed Jasper's arm, pulling him toward the SUV. We're faster. Let's move. The Jeep's engine roared to life, tires screaming as they peeled out, the city blurring past in a haze of neon and shadow. Back at the house, Vanessa crouched in the bathroom, her arms tight around little Amelie and Junior, their wide eyes glinting with fear in the dark. The doorknob rattled softly, once, twice, then stopped, replaced by muffled footsteps and a low voice outside. Tell Moreau it's done, the intruder growled into a phone, the words slicing through the thin wood. Vanessa's heart hammered, her hand trembling as she dialed 911, whispering their address to the operator. Downstairs, a shadow moved across the living room, the glint of a crowbar catching the moonlight. Furniture overturned with a crash. Drawers yanked open, a methodical chaos meant to terrify. Jasper's mind raced as Lamar floored it through red lights, the SUV's siren piercing the night. "They're hitting back hard," Lamar said, voice tight. "Moreau knows we've got something. He's scared." Jasper clutched the door handle, his knuckles white, every second an eternity. "If they touch my family—" He couldn't finish, the thought a blade in his chest. The moon watched, indifferent, as the distance closed, the faint wail of backup sirens rising in the dark, a race against a strike they hadn't seen coming. The SUV skidded to a stop in front of Jasper's cottage, the moon casting long shadows across the manicured lawn, now scarred with tire tracks. 3 patrol cars were already there, lights flashing silently, officers fanning out to secure the perimeter. Jasper leapt out before Lamar could kill the engine, his boots pounding the pavement as he sprinted toward the porch. "Vanessa!" he shouted, voice raw, fear and fury colliding in his chest. Lamar followed, barking commands into his radio. "Suspects fled. Search the block. Now!" The front door hung ajar, splintered wood framing the lock where it had been pried open, a cold breeze spilling out into the night. Inside, the living room was a war zone. Couch cushions slashed, a lamp shattered across the hardwood, family photos torn from the walls and trampled. Jasper's breath hitched as he spotted Junior's toy truck crushed underfoot, a jagged reminder of how close this had come. Lamar drew his gun, sweeping the downstairs with practiced precision. "Clear," he called, nodding toward the stairs. Jasper took them 2 at a time, his heart in his throat, until he reached the bathroom door. "Nessa, it's me. Open up." The lock clicked, and Vanessa flung it wide, throwing herself into his arms, Amelie and Junior clinging to her legs, their small faces streaked with tears. "They're gone," Vanessa whispered, her voice trembling but fierce. "I heard 'em leave right before the sirens. Said, 'Tell Moreau it's done.'" "Jazz, this wasn't random." She pulled back, her eyes blazing with a mix of terror and resolve. Jasper held her tight, the kids pressing into him, their warmth grounding him against the chaos. "I know," he said, voice breaking. "They're hitting us where it hurts." Lamar joined them, holstering his weapon, his gaze sweeping the hallway. Tacticals sweeping the area. Got descriptions from a neighbor. 2 men, masked, peeled out in a black sedan. Moreau's escalating fast. Downstairs, officers dusted for prints while Jasper surveyed the damage, his anger boiling over at the sight of a spray-painted message across the fireplace. "Back off." Vanessa knelt by a broken frame, Jasper's dad beaming at the restaurant's opening, her fingers brushing the glass as tears welled up. "They want us scared," she said, standing, her voice hardening. "They don't know us." Lamar nodded, his radio crackling with updates. "Nothing solid yet." "This is retaliation," he said, meeting Jasper's eyes. "That USB, the brick. They're losing control, and they're desperate." Jasper's phone buzzed, a security alert from Bayou Bites. "They hit the restaurant again," he said, showing Lamar the feed. Cameras offline, back door breached. The realization sank in like a stone. They weren't just after him now. They wanted to dismantle everything he'd built. "We can't stay here," Lamar said, voice firm. "I'll get a detail on your family. Trusted guys, my picks. We take this fight to them tomorrow." Jasper hugged Vanessa and the kids tighter, his resolve steeling. "They crossed a line tonight," he growled. "No more running." The moonlight faded as clouds rolled in, a storm brewing beyond the horizon, whispering of alliances yet to be forged in the dark. The sky over New Orleans was a bruised gray as dawn crept closer, the city holding its breath in the stillness before daybreak. Jasper Thibodeaux slumped in the passenger seat of Chief Lamar Jackson's SUV, the weight of the night pressing against his ribs like a fist. The hum of tires on asphalt blended with the faint wail of a saxophone, drifting from some late-night haunt, but it couldn't drown out the echo of Vanessa's trembling voice or the image of his kids' tear-streaked faces after the break-in. They were safe now, hidden in a downtown hotel under Lamar's hand-picked guards, but the violation of his home clung to him, a bitter taste he couldn't spit out. Lamar's eyes flicked to him, then back to the road, his voice cutting through the haze. "Got a meet lined up. She called after your precinct stunt. Says she's got the goods on Moreau." The SUV rolled into the gravel lot of Moonlit Diner, a rundown relic in the Garden District, where the neon sign flickered like a dying pulse, half its letters swallowed by darkness. Inside, the air was thick with the ghosts of fried onions and stale coffee, the lone waitress moving like a shadow behind the counter. Lamar jerked his chin toward a corner booth where a woman sat, her auburn hair yanked back into a severe bun, her spine stiff as if braced for a blow. Lila Fontenot rose as they approached, her handshake cold and quick, her eyes darting between them like a hunted thing. At 42, she carried the wear of 8 years as Vincent Moreau's right hand, her voice sharp-edged but brittle. "Mr. Thibodeaux, Chief Jackson, I quit yesterday. 8 years under that bastard, and I'm out. You're the only ones I'd give this to." Jasper slid into the booth, the cracked vinyl creaking under him, Lamar settling beside him with a predator's stillness. Lila pulled a thumb drive from her purse, her fingers trembling faintly as she pushed it across the scarred tabletop. "Files, recordings, bank records, everything I could smuggle out," she said, her words clipped, urgent. "Moreau's running a damn empire, extorting folks like you, Jasper, to clear Treme and Mid-City for his developer pals. That urban renewal line, it's a mask for theft, plain and simple." Jasper's chest tightened, the brick through his restaurant window flashing in his mind, Reggie's broken laugh echoing from the cell. "Why me?" he asked, voice rough, searching her face for cracks. "Why now?" Lila's eyes fell, her breath hitching as she spoke. "I saw them drag you in, cuffed you over a ticket, trashed your life. It hit me hard. I've typed his orders, listened to him laugh about ruining people. Good people. But you're different. You've got fight, a name they can't just erase. I loved him once, thought he'd changed the city for the better. Then I saw the blood on his hands." Her gaze snapped up, raw and fierce. "He's a plague. I want him gone." The diner's dim light caught the drive, a small glint of hope in the shadows, but the air thrummed with the danger of what lay ahead. Lila slid the thumb drive across the table, her fingers lingering on it a moment, as if reluctant to let go. "Everything's here," she continued, her voice dropping to a near whisper as the diner's jukebox kicked on, masking their words with a scratchy jazz tune. "Moreau's been running this for years, extortion masked as urban renewal. He targets businesses in Treme, Mid-City, anywhere developers want cheap land. Your arrest, Jasper, wasn't random. Your hotel deal put Bayou Bites on his radar. He's got lists, who to hit, how much to squeeze, even payoffs to city officials." Jasper's jaw tightened, the break-in at his home flashing in his mind. "So the brick, the raid on my place? That's him flexing?" "More than flexing," Lila said, her eyes hardening. "He's scared. Ty's footage, your pushback, it's rattling his cage. I heard him on a call last week, raging about loose ends. You're one of them." Lamar leaned forward, his voice a low growl. "Why come to us now, Lila?" 8 years is a long time to sit quiet. Her gaze dropped, a flicker of shame crossing her face. "I loved him once, thought he was a visionary, but when I saw the bodies piling up, figurative, sometimes literal, I couldn't stomach it. Resigning's my out. This is my penance." Jasper studied her, weighing her words against the tremor in her hands. "Why not IA or the feds?" he asked. Lila's laugh was bitter, sharp. "Moreau's got people everywhere. Cops, clerks, even a mole in your department, Chief. I don't know who, but he's always one step ahead. You're the only one he can't buy or break." Lamar's eyes darkened, the idea of a traitor in his ranks hitting like a punch. "This mole, any guesses?" Lila shook her head. "He's careful, burner phones, coded messages. But this drive's got names, politicians, developers, enough to start digging." The waitress shuffled past, refilling a trucker's coffee 2 booths away, oblivious to the storm brewing in their corner. Jasper pocketed the drive, his resolve hardening. "We've got Ty's footage, your files. Sonia Ortiz runs her story tomorrow. Can we trust you to testify if it comes to that?" Lila met his gaze, unflinching now. "I'll burn with him if I have to. Just make sure he falls." She slid a burner phone across. "My number's in there. Call when you're ready." Lamar nodded, standing. "Lay low, Lila. Moreau's desperate. He'll hit anyone close to this." As they stepped into the muggy night, Jasper's phone buzzed, an alert from Precinct 7's parking garage. "Ties down," Lamar read aloud, his voice tight with fury. "Beaten bad, still alive. But they got to him." Jasper's blood ran cold, the diner's neon fading behind them. "Moreau's tying up loose ends," he said, gripping the drive like a lifeline. "We're next if we don't move fast." Lamar started the SUV, the engine's roar a war cry in the dark. Their alliance was set, but the shadows were closing in, a trap waiting to spring under the city's foggy veil. The fog rolled thick over New Orleans, a gray shroud swallowing the city as dawn broke, muffling the clatter of streetcars and the hum of early risers. Jasper Thibodeaux stood outside Moonlit Diner, the weight of Lila Fontenot's thumb drive heavy in his pocket. Its contents, Moreau's dirty secrets, burning like a live wire against his thigh. Chief Lamar Jackson leaned against the SUV, his breath visible in the damp air, his face etched with fury after the call about Officer Tyrone Bell's beating. "Ties hanging on," Lamar said, voice rough. "But Moreau's sending a message. Snitches don't last. We've got to move fast, Jazz." Jasper nodded, the break-in at his home still raw, a wound that fueled his resolve. "Sonia Ortiz gets the story tomorrow. Lila's files, Ty's footage. We hit him from all sides." They climbed into the SUV, the engine rumbling to life as Lamar navigated the misty streets toward a safe house. An old fishing cabin tucked deep in the Louisiana bayou, a spot only he and Jasper knew from boyhood days dodging gators. "Hotel's secure for Vanessa and the kids," Lamar assured, eyes flicking to the rear view. "My guys won't blink, but you and me, we're targets now. Need to stay off the grid till we strike." The fog thickened as they left the city behind, cypress trees looming like sentinels, their roots clawing into the swamp. Jasper clutched Lila's burner phone, its single program number a lifeline to their new ally. But his gut churned. Moreau's reach felt closer than ever. Back at Precinct 7, Vincent Moreau paced his office, the fog outside pressing against the windows like a living thing. His silver hair gleamed under the desk lamp, his tailored suit unruffled despite the chaos sprawling around him. Lieutenant Claude Bisset stood before him, sweat beading on his brow, while Officer Roy Dupont lounged in a chair, smirking as if the world were his playground. "Jackson's out of control," Moreau said, voice smooth but laced with venom. "Carter, Thibodeaux, called him from holding. Now Bell's leaking footage, and my assistant's gone rogue. This ends today." Bisset shifted uncomfortably. "Chief's got allies, sir. Hard to touch him clean." Moreau's smile was a blade. "Then we don't touch him clean. I'm acting chief as of now. Suspended Jackson for misconduct, effective immediately." Dupont chuckled, cracking his knuckles. "What about Thibodeaux? Man's a damn cockroach. Won't stay down." Moreau stopped pacing, his eyes glinting with cold calculation. "Freeze his accounts, tax evasion, fraud, whatever sticks. Make it public, messy. He's the linchpin. Break him, and Jackson's crusade falls apart." He tapped a file on his desk, thick with fabricated dirt on Jasper's business. "Deploy it through the DA. Wilson's in our pocket. By noon, Thibodeaux's a fugitive." Bisset nodded, but doubt flickered in his stance. Moreau's escalation was a wildfire, and they were all in its path. The cabin came into view, a weathered shack perched on stilts above the murky water, fog curling around it like a trap waiting to spring. Jasper stepped out, the damp boards creaking underfoot, unaware that Moreau's net was tightening, a snare hidden in the mist. The fog clung to the bayou like a shroud as Jasper and Lamar hauled a duffel of essentials into the cabin: canned food, a laptop, Ty's USB, Lila's drive, their makeshift war room against Moreau's empire. The interior smelled of mildew and old wood, a single bulb swaying from the ceiling, casting jittery shadows across the warped floor. "We hole up here," Lamar said, setting his gun on the table, its steel glinting in the dim light. "Sonia runs the story tomorrow. By then, we've got the IP traced, more witnesses lined up. Moreau's done." Jasper nodded, plugging the laptop in, but his hands shook slightly, the break-in at his home replaying in his mind. Vanessa's voice, the kid's fear. "He's hitting us hard, Lamar. What's next? My family again?" Before Lamar could answer, a crack split the silence. A gunshot, sharp and close, shattering the cabin's lone window. Glass sprayed inward as Jasper dove for cover, Lamar rolling behind the table, weapon drawn in an instant. "Ambush!" Lamar barked, peering through the jagged hole. Shadows moved in the fog. 2, maybe 3 figures, closing in fast, their boots sloshing through the swamp. Bullets punched through the thin walls, splintering wood, the air alive with chaos. Jasper crawled to the duffel, grabbing a flashlight as Lamar returned fire, the muzzle flash strobing in the dark. "They tracked us!" Jasper yelled, heart pounding. "Your phone! Someone's feeding them!" Lamar's face twisted with rage, but his voice stayed steady. "Back door! Go!" He laid down cover, bullets ripping into the night as Jasper bolted for the rear exit, kicking it open into the misty swamp. The air was thick, wet, the ground sucking at his boots as he ran. Lamar close behind. A figure loomed ahead, masked, armed, swinging a rifle butt toward Jasper's head. He ducked, the blow grazing his shoulder, and tackled the man into the muck, fists flying in a desperate blur. Lamar fired again, dropping another shadow, but a third shot rang out. Close, too close. And Lamar grunted, stumbling as blood bloomed across his sleeve. "Get out!" Lamar roared, shoving Jasper toward the tree line, his arm hanging limp, but his gun still blazing. Jasper hesitated, torn. Lamar was hit, bleeding, but the chief's glare brooked no argument. "I'll hold him! Go, damn it!" Jasper ran, the fog swallowing him as shouts and gunfire faded behind. His lungs burned, legs churning through the swamp. Lila's burner phone clutched tight. He'd lost the laptop, the drives, but not the fight. Not yet. Moreau's trap had sprung, brutal and precise, and Lamar's blood was the cost. Miles away, Moreau smirked in his office, a phone pressed to his ear. "Jackson's down?" he asked, voice calm as death. A crackled reply. "Wounded. Thibodeaux's running. We've got their gear." Moreau hung up, leaning back, the fog outside a mirror to his cold triumph. Jasper was alone now, hunted, but the game wasn't over. Dawn was coming, and with it, a chance to turn the tables. The bayou's damp grip clung to Jasper Thibodeaux as he stumbled through the fog, the echo of gunfire and Lamar's pained shout fading into the swamp's oppressive silence. His boots sank into the muck, each step a fight against the earth, his shoulder throbbing where the rifle butt had grazed him. Lila Fontenot's burner phone was his only tether now, clutched tight in his muddy hand. The laptop, Ty's USB, Lila's drive, all lost in the cabin's wreckage. Chief Lamar Jackson's blood stained his memory, a scarlet promise that Moreau's trap had drawn first blood, but not the last. The fog parted just enough to reveal a rusted payphone by a dirt road, its cracked booth a lifeline in the pre-dawn gloom. Jasper fumbled coins from his pocket, his fingers trembling as he dialed Vanessa. "Jazz?" Her voice answered, sharp with worry, the hotel's safety a fragile shield. "I'm okay," he lied, breath ragged. "Lamar's hit. Ambush at the safe house. Moreau's coming for us all. Stay locked down. Tell his guys to watch every shadow." Vanessa's silence was a heartbeat too long, then firm. "We're secure. Get somewhere safe, Jazz. Don't you dare leave me alone in this." He hung up, the weight of her words anchoring him, then dialed Sonia Ortiz, the Crescent Times reporter who'd promised to break the story. "Sonia, it's Jasper," he rasped. "Moreau hit us. Lamar's down. Evidence gone. You still running it?" Her reply crackled through static, resolute. "Front page, Dawn edition, going live online in an hour. I've got enough from Ty's leaks and witness calls to burn Moreau, even without your drives." "Where are you?" Jasper glanced at the fog-choked road. "Bayou, near Slidell. Can't stay. Heading to you." Sonia's voice hardened. "I'll meet you. Clara Beaumont's office downtown. She's the civil rights lawyer who cracked that brutality case last year. She's in, says your fight's hers now." The line clicked dead, and Jasper staggered toward the road, headlights piercing the mist as a trucker slowed, offering a ride into the city. Across town, Memorial Hospital buzzed with controlled chaos, Officer Tyrone Bell strapped to a gurney in the ICU, his bruised face a map of Moreau's wrath. Nurses darted past as 2 of Lamar's trusted cops stood guard, their hands on holsters. Ty's eyes fluttered open, weak but fierce, locking onto a familiar figure. Detective Tanya Rodriguez, Lamar's internal affairs ace, slipping in with a notepad. "Chief sent me before the hit," she whispered, leaning close. "You're alive, that's a start. Talk to me." Ty's voice was a croak, but steady. Moreau ordered it. Sullivan swung the bat. "They knew I talked, knew where to find Jackson." Rodriguez's pen flew, her jaw tight. "Lamar's in surgery. Bullet missed the vitals. We've got a war now, Ty." Your evidence lit the fuse. Outside, the city stirred. Dawn's first light cutting through the fog. A fragile promise that the fight wasn't over. Not while Jasper still breathed and allies rose from the ashes. The trucker dropped Jasper off at the edge of the French Quarter, the city waking under a sky streaked with pink and gold, the fog lifting like a curtain on a battered stage. His clothes were caked with swamp mud, his shoulders screaming with every step. But he pushed through the early bustle, vendors setting up, a lone trumpet wailing, to Clara Beaumont's office on Canal Street. The civil rights lawyer's storefront was modest, its glass etched with justice for all, a beacon in the morning light. Inside, Sonia Ortiz paced, her notepad scribbled with chaos, while Clara, a wiry woman with steel-gray hair and a gaze that could cut glass, sorted files with surgical precision. "You look like hell," Sonia said, tossing Jasper a bottled water. "Story's live. Moreau's name's trending. We've got him bleeding." Jasper sank into a chair, gulping the water, his voice hoarse but firm. "Lamar's down. Ty's barely breathing. Moreau's hitting back hard. We lost the drives, but Lila's files. Did you get them?" Sonia nodded, tapping her laptop. "She emailed backups before you met. Financials, recordings. It's damning. Moreau greenlighting hits on Treme businesses, payoffs to councilmen. My editor's running it with Ty's leaks. Front page is a Molotov cocktail." Clara looked up, her tone sharp. "I've got court orders ready, witness protection for Ty, Lila, anyone who will testify. This isn't just police corruption. It's a civil rights massacre. You're the face of it, Jasper." Before he could respond, the door swung open, and Marie Laveau stepped in, Jasper's longest-serving chef at Bayou Bites, her apron still dusted with flour, her dark eyes blazing with something ancient and fierce. At 60, she carried the weight of Creole history in her bones, her voice low and urgent. "Jazz, I heard about the break-ins. Came as soon as I could. Moreau's dirtier than you know." She pulled a leather-bound notebook from her bag, its pages yellowed and cramped with handwriting. "I worked for his family, maid, cook, decades back. Kept this, his daddy's deals, his rise. It's got dates, names, bribes, proof he's been rotten since before he wore a badge." Jasper took the notebook, flipping through it. Entries from the 90s, payments to cops, land grabs masked as renewal. His breath caught. "Marie, why hold on to this?" Her smile was thin, bitter. "Revenge, Cher. Moreau's pa stole my daddy's recipe, our family's soul, and built his first fortune on it. I stayed close, waited. Now it's yours." Clara's eyes gleamed. "This ties Moreau to a legacy of theft, unimpeachable in court. We filed today. Federal suit, racketeering charges." Sonia grinned, typing fast. "Story updates with this. Moreau's done." Jasper's phone buzzed. Detective Rodriguez. "Ty's awake, talking. Moreau's crew hit him. Sullivan led it. He relayed it. The room electric with momentum. Lamar's fighting. Ty's alive. We've got Marie's book. Time to end this," he said, resolve hardening. Clara nodded, gathering papers. "Courthouse noon. We strike while the iron's hot." Outside, dawn flared brighter, streetlights dimming as the city braced for the explosion of truth, a prelude to the battle that would unfold under the judge's gavel. The sun blazed high over New Orleans, its heat shimmering off the courthouse steps on Tulane Avenue as Jasper Thibodeaux climbed them, his mud-streaked clothes swapped for a borrowed suit from Clara Beaumont's office. The weight of Marie Laveau's notebook pressed against his chest, tucked inside his jacket. Decades of Moreau's sins, inked in faded cursive, a weapon forged from the past. Inside, the federal courtroom buzzed with tension, the gallery packed with reporters, activists, and a cluster of Vincent Moreau's allies. Stone-faced councilmen and developers, their tailored suits a stark contrast to the sweat beading on their brows. Sonia Ortiz's Crescent Times story had hit like a thunderclap that morning, headlines screaming police corruption exposed, and the city was still reeling. Clara Beaumont stood at the plaintiff's table, her gray hair pulled tight, her voice cutting through the hum as she addressed the judge. Your Honor, we're filing a federal suit, racketeering, civil rights violations, conspiracy, against Deputy Commissioner Vincent Moreau and his precinct operatives. The evidence is overwhelming. Audio recordings, financial trails, witness testimony. She gestured to Jasper, Lila Fontenot beside him, her face pale but resolute. Mr. Thibodeaux's arrest was the spark, but this fire's been burning for years. Minority businesses targeted, families terrorized, all to feed Moreau's gentrification machine. The judge, a stern woman with wire-rimmed glasses, leaned forward, her gaze piercing. Serious claims, Miss Beaumont. Let's hear it. Jasper took the stand, his hand steady despite the ache in his shoulder, his voice ringing clear as he recounted the nightmare. Parking ticket to handcuffs, the break-in at his home, the ambush that left Lamar bleeding. They hit me 'cause I wouldn't bend, he said, eyes sweeping the room, locking on Moreau's cronies. But I'm not alone. Reggie Jones, Ty Bell, dozens more, all crushed under the same boot. It's not random, it's a system, and Moreau runs it. Clara played Lila's recordings next, Moreau's velvet drawl ordering, break Thibodeaux before that deal closes, the audio crackling through the room like a gunshot. Gasps rippled through the gallery. A councilman shifted uncomfortably, his tie suddenly too tight. The defense, led by a slick attorney named Hargrove, Moreau's mouthpiece, countered with a sneer. Mr. Thibodeaux's a friend of Chief Jackson. Convenient, no? This is personal bias masquerading as justice. Where's the hard proof? Clara slid Marie's notebook across the table, her voice steel. Right here, decades of bribes, land theft, Moreau's family blueprint for corruption. Cross-check it with the financials. Hargrove's smirk faltered as he flipped through it, the judge's eyes narrowing. Jasper's testimony held, the human cost laid bare. But Moreau himself was absent, a ghost in the proceedings, his shadow looming larger with every damning word. Outside, the courthouse steps swarmed with cameras, Sonia scribbling notes as the crowd chanted, "Justice now." Jasper stepped out for air, the weight lifting slightly, until Detective Tanya Rodriguez pushed through, her face grim. Ty's awake, she whispered. He's got more. Sullivan's the Batman, Moreau's the brains. They're cornered now. The battle was tilting, but the war wasn't won. Not yet. The courtroom doors swung open mid-hearing, a ripple of shock cutting through the stifling air as Officer Tyrone Bell was wheeled in on a gurney, federal agents flanking him like sentinels. His face was a patchwork of bruises, one eye swollen shut, but his jaw was set, his voice a raw rasp as he gripped the stand's edge. "Permission to testify, Your Honor," Clara Beaumont called, her tone urgent. The judge nodded, peering over her glasses. "Granted, proceed." Ty's words came slow, each one a hammer strike. "Moreau ordered my beating. Sullivan swung the bat. Precinct garage 3 nights ago. They knew I'd leaked footage, knew where Chief Jackson hid with Thibodeaux. Moreau said, 'Send a message, silence them all.'" The gallery erupted, murmurs swelling to shouts, until the judge's gavel cracked like thunder, silencing the chaos. Hargrove leapt up, his polished veneer cracking. "This is hearsay. Officer Bell's traumatized, unreliable," Clara countered, sliding a USB across the table. "Recovered from Ty's apartment by Detective Rodriguez. Body cam audio, Your Honor. Moreau's voice. Explicit orders to assault Mr. Bell and target Treme businesses. It's irrefutable." The judge signaled the clerk, and the room held its breath as the audio played. Moreau's smooth Creole lilt, chillingly clear. "Wipe out Thibodeaux's family if you have to. Clean up the loose ends." A woman in the gallery gasped, clutching her purse. Hargrove's face drained of color. Jasper clenched his fists, Vanessa's trembling voice from the break-in echoing in his skull. "Tell Moreau it's done." Ty's testimony was the nail, Marie's notebook the hammer, driving Moreau's empire toward collapse. Clara pressed the advantage, calling Lila next. Her voice trembled but held as she detailed years of Moreau's schemes. Payoffs logged, threats transcribed. Her betrayal a blade honed by regret. The defense floundered, Hargrove's objections growing shrill, but the judge's expression hardened, the scales tipping visibly. Enough, she snapped, cutting off a stuttering rebuttal. This court's seen plenty. I'm recommending immediate indictments. Where's the defendant? A federal agent stepped forward, badge flashing. Moreau's in custody, Your Honor, nabbed boarding a private yacht on Lake Pontchartrain, headed for the Gulf with $2 million in cash. Offshore accounts traced. Flight interrupted. The room buzzed again, reporters scribbling furiously as Moreau's allies slunk lower in their seats. Jasper exhaled, a knot loosening in his chest, but his eyes stayed sharp. Victory was close, not complete. Clara turned to him, a rare smile breaking her stern mask. We've got him, Jasper. Racketeering, assault, conspiracy. He's done. Outside, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the courthouse steps, where Sonia's live feed broadcasted the chaos. Moreau falls, corruption unraveled. Jasper joined her, Vanessa's text lighting his phone. Lamar's awake, stable. Relief flooded him, but Rodriguez's whisper lingered. Moreau's crew was cornered, desperate, and Sullivan was still out there. The gavel had fallen, but the scars of this fight were deep, and the city's reckoning was only beginning, a fragile dawn breaking over a wounded New Orleans. The late afternoon sun dipped low over New Orleans, painting the Mississippi's muddy waters with streaks of amber as Jasper Thibodeaux stepped out of Memorial Hospital. The courthouse victory still hummed in his veins. Vincent Moreau in cuffs, his empire crumbling under the weight of testimony and evidence. But the air felt heavy, tinged with the cost. Inside, Chief Lamar Jackson lay in recovery, the bullet from the Bayou ambush removed, his vitals stable but his fight far from over. Jasper's borrowed suit was wrinkled now, the adrenaline fading into a bone-deep weariness as he gripped Vanessa's hand, her presence a quiet anchor. Amelie and Junior trailed behind, their small voices asking when Uncle Lamar could come home, a question Jasper couldn't yet answer. Detective Tanya Rodriguez met them in the lobby, her notepad swapped for a cup of hospital coffee, her eyes shadowed but sharp. Moreau's locked up tight. Feds are digging into his offshore stash, she said, voice low. Sullivan's still AWOL, though. Slipped the net after Ty's testimony. Watch your back, Jasper. He nodded, the name a splinter in his mind. Roy DuPont locked up, Claude Bisset indicted. But Sullivan's absence gnawed at him, a loose thread in a tapestry of justice still unraveling. Lamar awake? He asked. Rodriguez's lips twitched, a faint smile. In and out. Asked for you first thing. Go see him. Upstairs, Lamar's room was a sterile cocoon, machines beeping softly as he lay propped against pillows, his dark skin ashen, but his gaze fierce. Jazz, he rasped, voice weak but warm, reaching for his hand. Heard you took Moreau down. Damn courtroom warrior. Jasper gripped it tight, a lump rising in his throat. Couldn't have done it without you bleeding for it, man. You scared the hell out of me. Lamar chuckled, wincing as it tugged his stitches. Takes more than a bullet to kill me. Moreau's crew, Sullivan. He's the last snake. We ain't done. Vanessa settled the kids in the corner with a coloring book, her eyes meeting Jasper's, a silent pact to shield them from the lingering threat. Ty's safe, she said, voice steady. Feds moved him. New identity till this blows over. Lila, too. Jasper nodded, relief mingling with the ache. Ty's battered face, Lila's trembling resolve, all carved into his soul. The mayor's office had called earlier, Parker hedging with praise but no promises, offering Lamar a promotion to commissioner once he healed, a chance to gut the rot Moreau had sown. You taking it? Jasper asked, settling into a chair. Lamar's eyes gleamed. Hell yes. Someone's got to rebuild this mess. Outside, the city buzzed with aftermath. Sonia Ortiz's story plastered across every newsstand, protests swelling in Treme, demanding accountability. Jasper's phone buzzed. His manager at Bayou Bites, customers pouring in, supports crazy. The fight had scarred them, but it had sparked something too. a flicker of hope in a city long shadowed. Yet the quiet of Lamar's room held a deeper truth. The wounds ran deep, and healing would take more than a gavel's fall. Jasper leaned back in the hospital chair, the steady beep of Lamar's monitors a lifeline threading through the quiet. Vanessa sat beside him, her fingers tracing Junior's drawing, a shaky sketch of their house whole again, while Amelie curled against her, asleep. The weight of the past weeks pressed on Jasper's shoulders, the ticket, the cuffs, the gunfire in the bayou. But it was the spray-painted back off on his fireplace that haunted him most, a scar on his family's sanctuary. "We can't go home yet," he said softly, meeting Vanessa's eyes. "Sullivan's still out there. Moreau's ghost." She nodded, her jaw tight. "Hotel's fine for now. Kids are tougher than we think." Lamar shifted, his voice a low rumble. "Sullivan won't run long. Rodriguez got eyes everywhere. Feds too. He's a dead man walking." Jasper wanted to believe it, but the unease lingered, a shadow he couldn't shake. His phone buzzed again. Clara Beaumont this time. Suits moving forward, settlement talks starting. Bayou Bites gets restitution. He relayed it, a faint smile tugging his lips. "Business is bouncing back. Folks showing up to stand with us?" Vanessa's hand squeezed his, her voice fierce. "They see you fought. Won't let Moreau's kind win again." The conversation turned to what came next. Lamar's promotion hung in the air, a chance to purge Precinct 7's rot. But Jasper's mind drifted to the bigger wound, the city's soul, bruised by decades of greed. "Clara and I talked," he said, leaning forward. "Launching a foundation, help folks Moreau targeted, fund legal fights, keep cops honest. No one else gets crushed like Reggie, like Ty's dad." Lamar's eyes lit up, pain forgotten for a moment. "That's you, Jazz, turning scars into something real. Count me in. Commissioner's got pull." Vanessa smiled, rare and bright. "Call it Bayou Justice. Keep the fire burning." A knock interrupted. Marie Laveau stepped in, her apron gone, her presence filling the room like a storm rolling off the Gulf. She carried a Tupperware of gumbo, setting it on Lamar's tray with a nod. "For healing, Chief. Jazz, that notebook, it hit Moreau where it hurt." "My daddy's smiling somewhere." Jasper rose, hugging her tight, her warmth a balm against the chaos. "You saved us, Marie. Gave us the past to fight the present." She pulled back, eyes glistening. "You gave me peace, Cher. Closed a circle I couldn't." As Marie left, Jasper's phone lit up. A news alert. Sullivan spotted near Baton Rouge. Feds closing in. Relief flickered, but the scars remained. Trust shattered, a home defiled, friends bloodied. Lamar caught his gaze, voice firm despite the rasp. "We're not whole yet, but we're standing. That's enough for now." Vanessa gathered the kids, her touch steadying Jasper as they stepped into the hall, the hospital's sterile glow fading behind. The fight had left marks, but it had forged something too. A resolve to rebuild, a promise to heal. Outside, the city's lights flickered on, a fragile hope against the night, whispering of a reckoning still to come. 3 weeks had passed since the courthouse gavel fell, and New Orleans hummed with a cautious renewal under the late March sky. Jasper Thibodeaux stood on the riverbank of the Mississippi, the water lapping gently at the levee, its surface catching the city's neon lights. Green, purple, gold, like a promise reborn. The air carried the faint spice of crawfish boils and the brassy wail of a second-line parade drifting from the quarter, a heartbeat of resilience after the storm. Vincent Moreau was behind bars, his indictment a seismic crack in the city's corrupt foundation. But Jasper's scars, physical and otherwise, still ached. Lamar Jackson's recovery, Vanessa's quiet strength, the kids' laughter returning, these were the threads stitching him back together. He'd spent the morning at Bayou Bites' flagship on St. Charles, the restaurant buzzing with more than just customers. The windows, once shattered by Moreau's brick, gleamed new, the tables packed with locals, old regulars and new faces, drawn by the story of a man who'd fought and won. Vanessa had organized a family dinner there tonight, a celebration of survival, and Jasper could still taste the gumbo Marie Laveau had ladled out, her hands steady as she served a packed house. This place is yours again, Cher, she'd said, her voice a balm. They can't take it no more. The turnout wasn't just business. It was defiance. A community reclaiming its soul from the shadows. Chief Lamar Jackson joined him now, stepping from his unmarked SUV, his arm in a sling but his stride firm, the silver commissioner's badge pinned to his jacket glinting in the dusk. Mayor made it official today, Lamar said, a grin breaking through his fatigue. Commissioner Jackson, full mandate to clean house. Moreau's cronies are dropping like flies. Sullivan's in cuffs as of noon, nabbed in a Baton Rouge dive bar. Jasper exhaled, the last loose thread snipped, a weight lifting he hadn't known he carried. You're gonna rebuild it, huh? He asked, nodding toward the city. Lamar clapped his good hand on Jasper's shoulder. We are, Jazz. Precinct 7's getting a new creed. Serve, not rule. They stood in silence. The river's current a mirror to their shared history. Two boys from the 9th Ward who'd dodged floods and fought bullies. Now men who'd toppled a titan. Jasper pulled Lila's burner phone from his pocket. It screened dark, her number erased after she'd vanished into witness protection. A ghost who'd given them the edge. We lost a lot, he said, voice low. Ty's hiding, Lila's gone. My house still feels like a crime scene. Lamar nodded, his gaze distant. Lost, yeah, but look what we gained. Treme's fighting back. Protests, lawsuits. You lit the fuse, man. The neon reflected brighter now, a dance of light on the water, and Jasper felt the stir of something new. Not just survival, but purpose. Vanessa's dinner waited, Marie's gumbo simmered, and a foundation, Bayou Justice, was taking shape, a legacy born from the ashes of Moreau's ruin. The city wasn't healed, but it was awake, and that was enough, for now. Lamar nudged Jasper toward Bayou Bites, the riverbank fading behind them as they crossed St. Charles, the restaurant's warm glow spilling onto the street. Inside, the air thrummed with life, laughter, clinking glasses, the sizzle of Marie's skillets. And Vanessa met them at the door, Amelie and Junior darting to hug Lamar's legs, their joy a quiet miracle after weeks of fear. You're late, Vanessa teased, kissing Jasper's cheek, her eyes bright with pride. Couldn't miss the view, he replied, pulling her close, the scent of her jasmine perfume grounding him. The tables were full, faces familiar and new. Reggie Jones raising a beer from the corner, his bakery back in business, a nod of gratitude in his grin. Marie emerged from the kitchen, her apron dusted with cayenne, carrying a small wooden box carved with Creole patterns. She pressed it into Jasper's hands, her voice soft but firm. Been holding this since the trial, Cher. Open it. He lifted the lid, revealing a fragile recipe card, yellowed, edges curling, scribed in her father's hand. Laveau's Creole roux, the soul of a dish Moreau's family had stolen decades ago. My daddy's secret, she said, tears glinting in her eyes. They took it, built their name on it, Vincent's pa laughing while we starved. I kept it close, waiting. Now it's yours, ours again. Jasper's throat tightened, the weight of her gift more than paper. It was redemption, a circle closed after generations of theft. He pulled her into a hug, the room falling quiet as he spoke, voice steady but thick. This ain't just a recipe, it's justice, Marie. We'll cook it here, loud and proud. Your daddy's name on every bowl. The crowd erupted. Cheers, claps, a whoop from Reggie. Marie wiping her eyes as Vanessa squeezed Jasper's hand. Lamar raised a glass of water. Doctor's orders, he'd grumbled, and toasted, to scars that heal and neon that shines. The meal stretched late, gumbo flowing, stories swapping, a family forged in fire reclaiming their place under the lights. Later, as the last guest trickled out, Jasper stood with Lamar on the porch, the city's neon pulsing brighter now, a defiant glow against the night. Bayou Justice launches next week, Jasper said, resolve in his tone. For Ty's dad, for Reggie, all the ones Moreau broke. We keep fighting. Lamar nodded, his sling a badge of their war. Precincts changing. New blood, new rules. We're not done, Jazz, just starting. A news van rolled by, footage airing of Precinct 7's roll call. Young officers pledging community over corruption, a fragile dawn breaking. Jasper tossed the old parking ticket, creased, faded into the breeze, watching it spiral into the Mississippi, swallowed by the current. Justice ain't a finish line, he murmured. Lamar's nod a silent echo. It's a fire we keep lit. The neon flared, a testament to their stand. But the river whispered a harder truth. Countless others, voiceless, still waited in the dark. For Jasper, that fight was enough. A spark from a ticket that burned down a dynasty, leaving a city to rise, wounded but awake, under lights that refused to dim.